Back to the Comp Closet podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Moore, and today we are diving deep into competition tan with the mastermind behind Fusion Tan, which for those of you who don't know is the official tanning service for FMG shows. Sam O'Brien, welcome.
How are you? It's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me. This is cool. I've never done virtual tanning before. I've always wanted to do that.
Yeah, we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, see how you work out at the end of it. You look
Yeah.
like you could do with a tan right now, so
Oh,
we'll
yeah.
get into it.
Yeah. So can you start by sharing a little bit about your personal journey, like how you got into the tanning business and what kind of drives your passion for it?
Yeah, okay. 2010, like 2009, 2010, I had a business partner. We started tanning hair and makeup businesses, so it was like they were salons. The main drive behind that for me at the time, so I was about 22, 23, was tanning beds. Seemed like a good idea, seemed like a pretty easy way to make a buck. People jump in, close the door, charge them 10 or $20 on the way out. You sit there, watching, MySpace back in the day online while people are going in and out. So that's kind of where it started. And then we got hit by a bit of a bombshell in 2011, 2012 when tanning beds became the big cancer scare and the cancer rage, which subsequently meant that they became illegal to operate from a commercial basis. And I was kind of stuck in a situation of do we shut it down? But we had a really healthy database. We had huge debts because that was all like leased business equipment. And we had all the clients there that needed tans, and everyone was kind of, most people weren't happy about it. And regardless of what you think about tanning beds, it was something that, we started a legal business and then we were shut down. And then the clients were left with, well, where do I get a tan? And we always kind of had the feeling they were going to do it anyway. So literally just started making the tan ourselves, like from, backyard, garage, mixing and matching. There was no regulation on how to make it. It wasn't classified at the time as a proper cosmetic. So, we just started making the product. And I did that for the salons. And we kept the clientele, and we rolled most of our clients back then, because in the tanning and the solarium business, it's very similar to the gym membership business where it's all direct debit. You get $10, $15 unlimited a week, come in as often as you want. So we set up the same model on spray tanning, and we're probably the first to do it. We had hundreds and hundreds of members. So we transferred them from the UV and the solarium tanning over to spray tanning using our products. And, I was in the thick of it at that point because, we were by then I was like 25, 26. Based on the Gold Coast, we had a lot of high profile clients. So we started the spray tans. We were kind of pioneering. We were probably one of the biggest in terms of professional products, especially from an adaptability point of view. Like, we were making products specific to what the market wanted, especially the Gold Coast market and the event market. And that in turn kind of led to a few different deals that, we picked up a contract for Playboy in 2012, 2013, which had a lot of good travel benefits. And then I started, obviously off the back of that, we were making product just called Bliss Makeup and Tan product. And then we off the back of that, we started a few different brands. So started one brand called Fitness Tan, which was completely made off the back out of, I had a relationship at the time with Alicia Gowans, or formerly Gowans, who's still very much a part of FMG. So we were making her tan for stage. And at the time, because we were able to be flexible, we were making the product specifically to what they wanted. Same as with Playboy, we had clients who were, one of our clients was a DJ for the Playboy Mansion, and she's still quite famous in the DJ world. So she wanted a specific tan, which became the Playboy tan, and then we started doing that. And then that kind of led to a few other opportunities. I kind of found my creativity in it by brand creation and product creation. So listening to kind of what the situation was, challenging the norm, and then creating products off the back of it. And, it wasn't so much of having to become a mad scientist. It was really trial and error. And I'm kind of hinged now between working with the laboratories, like, because we're a manufacturer, but we work with the laboratories to source the type of ingredients that we need. And look, a lot of the brands, that we've created have now been bought, we've created and sold. But the thing was really kind of creating a niche. And what kind of keeps me going and when you look at FMG over the course of the 10 years I've worked with, Ari and Pauline, it goes back and forth. This didn't work. The tans were sweating on stage. How do we fix that? That's not something that kind of necessarily gets looked at in a lot of other fitness federations, simply because they don't see the product, the tanning product, as part of the brand. I always kind of like the idea of the color that we create for you is brand image, so that's what we're trying to put out. So regardless of anything, it's got to have the appeal for the brand, to keep the sponsors coming back, to keep the competitor. Nothing's better than when the competitors say, "My tan was great for stage, but then it still looked good for the week afterwards." And I did photo shoots, and I went out with the girls, and I went out for drinks at the beach club afterwards, and everybody thought it looked great. And that's a win, but it's specific to the client. And I guess as much as it's great for me to sit back and say, there's 250 people in the show, and you're all our individual clients, at the end of the day, FMG is our client. So the feedback we get from them, where it's really delivering, because there's a process that goes with that, which is when it gets to FMG and when it gets to stage shows, that people don't realize, you can have the best tan backstage and you can have the best tan for a photo shoot, but under the particular lighting that they're choosing to use, you can look washed out. And that's a really hard thing to see, because it can just go totally translucent on your skin type. So unless we adapt to that, and then so if we turn up to a show and the lighting's incomplete, or there's too much whitewash lighting or something like that, it may look good on a darker skin type, but doesn't look good on a lighter skin type, or vice versa. And that's a challenge, and I think that's what's kind of kept me going with the fitness industry. But like we do it for day spas, we do it for media outlets, for even like tans that for TV presenters, everything has to kind of look different. And I guess that's kind of what's kind of kept me going in it. And it's finding a niche. Like, everyone's heard of brands like Bondi Sands and things like that. Bondi Sands, made a good brand out of, when I say good brand, they made a well-known brand out of creating a particular type of color and painting everyone the same. And it really just became that, and that worked in a social atmosphere. But it doesn't. It was mass numbers, whereas we kind of made it by going, okay, we're going to make a fitness brand. We're going to call it Fitness Tan, and that's going to be the brand. Then when we created B-Tan, that was because our salons were called Bliss Makeup and Tan. I sold those salons, in 2014. So off the back of those memberships, we were able to sell that business, which meant I had to change the name of the brand to B-Tan, and that became a mainstream product. And then apart from that, it's the whole idea of pioneering. Like, people tell you can't make a tan that doesn't sweat off. I kind of go, well, bullshit. I can, surely I can do that. Or, that you hear of these drying powders, when after a spray tan, it's like, yeah, that's cool. But all that essentially is baby powder. And, that's what they use to dry it. So we use a wet product, but how do you make a wet product that you can use backstage, that you can use in an aerosol can or spritz? It doesn't fundamentally make sense, but you're creating it in a high intense environment, where people are about to go on stage, they're sweating, they're just pumped up. How do you dry them down with a wet product? So that kind of has become sorry, I'm going to turn my phone on silent here because it's going to go off. That's kind of become the challenge and the burn for me. That's kind of the win. The satisfaction is that everyone loves the tans, but like it's the challenge. That's what kind of keeps us turning up at every show. And every show we look at, we break it down and we look at it. What can you do better? How can the products improve?
Yeah, epic. That is such an incredible story, and it's cool to hear how much passion and the journey that went on behind this brand that we all see in the FMG Tan or Fusion Tan. So what are some of the specific challenges that you've faced with developing the tan specifically for FMG or fitness shows?
Yeah. Probably for me, the biggest thing that gives me the most anxiety at the shows anyway is I watch a weather report. So the temperature, and a lot of people will kind of say, especially the Gold Coast is probably the most challenging show I've ever done. The most satisfying, but it's the most challenging, and not necessarily because of numbers and how many people. It's the environment. because, it's the way the backstage is laid out. So anyone who's done that, there's a lot of change rooms, there's a lot of levels, there's a lot of people moving around. Because of that, there's a lot of backstage stuff, so you got a lot of body heat. So on that, turning up at, like if we turn up to the venue and the air conditioning isn't working at 6 8, so like the minute I can get in the venue, like I know where the air conditioning switches are in that venue, because if there's no staff, I need to make sure it is, because we've had instances where you get too much body heat too quick, you can't cool the bodies down, and regardless of how much work we put into the tan, once the product can start to run on like a backstage, it's very hard to stop it, because as a competitor, you're instantly in this frame of mind that you're focused on, you're posing. The last thing you want to have to worry about is the tan, and rightly so, because you've paid for it and that's what we're there for. But you'll see it in the minute somebody starts to sweat and they move it, because you're itchy, because you can feel a bead of sweat. You do it. Once you start that, you start a kind of river flow effect of that. So, us having to be so close, that's why we're in the lineup right before people go on. But quite often it's just, I'll have a temperature gauge backstage. And I've had to learn this through trial and error, like where we had a show going back some years, but where we were doing the top coats was at the casino, but it wasn't as close. It was mainly for the men. It's not normally such a problem for the women, but the amount of women that, the female competitors in one change room can get quite hard from a body temperature level. But the men obviously are their pump ups are harder. They're running a higher body heat. So we tend to tan them last, and because we were pushing it in terms of showtime, we were doing their stage coats, and then they were in the casino, but they were at the other end of the casino where the tanning rooms were. So they were having to sprint, like we were rushing them backstage, which is obviously putting their body heat up, anxiety levels, and it was a hot day, so that then becomes a situation where their body heat, you're already starting at that, and typically, like body temperature, once people are moving, like they're like, and I'll go around and kind of back of my hand touching the guys on the back of there, because okay, you're too warm, and it can just be a matter of moving them off or into a cooler area while they're doing their pump up. Really making sure that they're and we work with the guys who are running the show. Okay, if you want to be organised and you want to have them in the lineup, but if they don't have to go on stage for 20 minutes and they're burning up, then we move them out to kind of cool their body temp down. So that's kind of been one challenge, which was about logistics. So now we typically try with the male competitors, try and have them doing their tans and top coats and their touch-up side stage, which you'll see that at the Gold Coast show. And at Sydney show, it's obviously on the upper level. So the logistics of where it is. And the other reason I watch the weather is, when you've got times like morning and night shows, like the top coat, it's kind of important for people to know it's a tanning product by nature, because it tans you, but it's actually a cosmetic. It's like a body makeup. So it sits on the surface of your skin, which means if it comes in contact with running water, not necessarily humidity, but running water, it'll sweat, and it'll drip. So we had a show where it happened on the Gold Coast, where a big storm, typically which happens at the back end of the year, I think it was an October, November show, came in through the intermission when everyone's lining up in the Uber in the taxi rank to run over and get back to their hotel or eat something or talk about how they went with their coach or anything, and they all get caught in the rain. That's 100 people we've got to fix, and everyone looks panel damaged because they've got dots all over their skin from the rain. So that's the other reason. But look, typically it's managing. Look, there's key areas like on show day that we can go to, and I think our role backstage show day, it's the hard work's typically done. There's always things you've got to fix up, but it's calming anxiety, and you spend a lot of time in the lineup, and you just want somebody to tell you look great, somebody to check your butt, your smile lines, to make sure you have it. Every time you sit down, the tan's going to come off a bit, so the girls will go through and touch that up. But a lot of that's just, it's almost a love language at that time, where it's physical touch, and it's like, just love me, tell me I look great, because I'm about to go onto a stage with 1,500 people yelling at me, and I want to know that I look good. So that's the challenges in that. But then to cycle that through in terms of how we improve the product and how it's gone over the last 10 years is we don't really, like, a lot of it is me. We can test the product, the guys here in the warehouse, we share a warehouse with another company, and the first show we did, I think it was the last FMG. It was last year. There was about 300 people. It would have been the pro-am, and it was going to be a record hot weekend where it was really hot. So we were trialing the new top coat finish, and I had one of the girls sprayed on me, and I was doing push-ups in the back of the warehouse in the heat just to try and see how long it took. And I was only good for 10 push-ups, so that was that was fine. But you can't. The point of it is that you can't really test the conditions without testing it on stage, and which subsequently has times where things don't always go right, and you've got to just think on your feet and fix it. But like that's been part of the process. And a lot of that is things that, as a competitor, the more of this, a lot of this is actually fixable by what you do at home, and how you prepare coming into it. Because one of the biggest things I tell people is that we don't have to build as much color coming in to show, which it makes sense that if we don't have to do two base coats and a thick top coat, you're not carrying as much product, so your body won't sweat as much on stage. That being said, is that the stronger your base tan, the less product we have to apply, because what a lot of people don't realize is the base coat, now that we're doing custom formulas to your skin type, it adapts. The amount of color that comes through will adapt as to how good your base tan is. Now, that doesn't mean you have to go out and lay on the beach every weekend just to build up your base tan, but it doesn't hurt either, because the tan will develop based on the color underneath. And if you don't have a strong color underneath, you normally have to apply more product, which is why we use things now like base tan builders. You try and encourage, if you do have the ability to, and the skin type that allows a bit of UV, that tends to help in the lead up. But more than that, it's basic skincare, because if your skin's healthy and you're eating the right foods and you're drinking enough water and you're applying body moisturizer, your skin will absorb a lot more product, so we have to apply less. And it's not one of those things where it's value for money and we should apply as much product as we can, because like I said, the more product we take on, the more clogged your pores are, the more likely you are to sweat on stage, which is that's my biggest anxiety on show day is, like when we go overseas and you do a show in the middle of winter and body heats are down and everyone's freezing, it's great, because I'm like, nobody's going to sweat on stage. But all the popular shows are in the hot environments. We've got Bali coming up, we've got Mexico, you've got Gold Coast, you've got Dubai. We just had Texas. I think it was about 45 degrees outside in Texas, which is about 105, 110 degrees Fahrenheit. And that means that every time people are leaving the show and they're going back to their hotel room, they're going out into that heat. So, look, the products are pretty forgiving. It's not something that you really have to sweat about. That's kind of our problem. But there is things that we kind of acknowledge, which is why normally always in your base tan appointment, we'll be asking you, have you been on stage before? Do you typically sweat? And we apply the product accordingly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's definitely such a big level of comfort in having you and the team there backstage. Like, I've experienced it myself. You're touching up little bits and pieces, and as you said, telling you your tan looks great, and it's definitely very comforting having the team there. So that's good for competitors to know.
Well, and it's good knowing, like, like 99% of the things that you see. So you'll see every time you do a costume change, you'll see a scratch on your arm or something. They're not going to see it on stage. So, but we can make that decision as to whether we touch it up, because there's an obvious area there where it's like, well, we can do it just to make you feel good, but by adding more product, we're going to create a two-tone effect on your arm because there's a scratch there. Where there's a darker patch and a lighter patch, we won't do it.
Yeah.
And look, there's always going to be things that, like, sometimes you got to make a judgment call on, just like, and like I said, it typically happens with competitors who go on stage. Like, if you're competing if you're doing fitness and you're doing bikini, and they tend to follow each other. You go off stage and then you've got to go back on. Your body heat's going to be higher. You've been out the back. You've put a hairdryer through your hair, which is in turn, which is your body heat. And like normally we would work it out. And body heat, like I've said it a fair few times, it's a big thing as to whether we would touch it up. But it's always cool to know. And these venues now, most of the ones we're at the dressing rooms have showers in them. That in a situation where there's a worst case scenario where the tan has been ruined, that say you're backstage and somebody opens a bottle of water and it splashes everywhere. Bathroom accidents happen all the time. Like something happens, it's irreparable, you sweat on stage, you can shower it off and we can start again. And it doesn't, top coats don't typically take, because it's body makeup, you're not having to wait for that development time. And I think that's key. That's something that back in 2014, 15, 16, we weren't doing top coats. And it was because we were trying to keep the integrity of the competition. The competition is designed to be more fashion based, as much as there's certain categories which I don't get too involved in the judging criteria, but from what I know, you've got the bodybuilding side of it, you've got the fitness side of it, but then they skew in the bikini a lot more to your fashion and your stage presence. Like you don't overly want a dark tan, but by putting that top coat on, what it does is it gives you that airbrush finish. So the photographers are like the tans look flawless under that lighting, and it makes it very forgiving. And the easiest way to understand what the tans are designed to do is if you've ever renovated or painted a house, the base tan that you come in for, as much as it's color, that's like putting the primer on. And without the primer, the top color doesn't look any good. And it also creates an avenue where we try and match it well enough that if the top coat moves and it does, say, come in contact with some water, or it does get scratched, or there's something that happens on stage or right before you go on stage that we don't get to touch up, the base coat is going to mean that the color is fairly, that the integrity of the color is pretty spot on. So that it's not going to come up as an obvious, what's going on there from a judging point of view. And as much as it might not affect the judging, there's nothing worse than looking at your photos or the videos and people going, what's that on your leg? That's something we try and avoid. So yeah, I mean, I'll go through the first, every time, like in the morning show, and I know that's obviously when the judging is, but I'll be in the crowd generally looking at everyone's number, ticking everyone's tan off and seeing if there's anything we can do backstage to improve it. The argument there is typically that the judging's already done. However, if there was any kind of issues, but it's more just kind of seeing, well, like for me, I guess it's an anxiety thing of making sure that everyone looked great and there wasn't anything more we could do. The typical problems that we do have, though, I mean, we haven't asked this question yet, but it's is people not washing off their base tan thoroughly enough. There's a bit of a mindset with competitors, especially when they're jumping from other federations, that they tend to think they need to be darker. It's our job to make you darker on color on stage on day of competition. When it comes to the base coats, you really need to wash it off, because unlike other federations, we're putting stronger cosmetic through there to counteract your skin type. So someone with a lighter skin type, like your skin type, Sarah, we're running a bit more of a green or red base through it to counteract the lighter skin type, which means that you can then you can build a darker result. Your makeup artist will go a little bit darker, and you can get the same. And we don't do that just to kind of necessarily make you look good and whatever. It's a branding thing, because it really comes down to that's the brand image. So when you look at these stage photos that come out, you shouldn't have to have an FMG signature at the bottom of the picture for people just to know that's an FMG tan. And that's kind of that's what it's all about. And everyone has to have that uniqueness where, we're not trying to make everyone look the same color, but we're trying to give them the same finish, if that makes sense. So it's got that same airbrush gloss finish. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. Could you walk us through the process for tanning for an FMG show, like from the base coat tan?
Yeah. Look, I mean, I think the main thing, probably prior to that, which it comes into the base coat tan, is when you go to the booking portal now. This is something that Pauline, and hats off to her, because she really did redesign that whole process. Is it used to be everyone got one color, back in the day, but it's not like that anymore. It's you go through a skin type assessment. That's important to do, because we make them compulsory, even if you've tanned a million times before. It gives us the background of what your skin's like. So now we go at the time you fill that booking sheet out and you book your appointment. That then gets we get notified by a text message to the customer service phone, which at the moment is run by two of our staff, Shah and Tash. They then see your skin assessment. They see what time you book for, but they're not worried about that. They see your skin assessment, and then they'll reach out to you in the coming. Like, you get to nominate any skin concerns you've got, such as tan lines, eczema, psoriasis, skin allergies, if your skin's prone to bruising, and they also we put you into about, like, typically on a skin chart there's about 5 skin types. We put you in about 8 different skin types. Just to work out, because that allows them to pre-mix your base formula. And by pre-mix, that comes down to color bases, and whether they need hypoallergenic ingredients, because if you've got sensitive skin, if you do have, like, even if your skin's prone to sunburning and you've got lighter skin types, we'll always reach out to you via text message a couple of weeks out, because it's important for us to know. Because if you say got sunburn, we have to change. We would change the formula for your tan to be a greener base that counteracts the redness, and have more aloe vera in the product to allow it to absorb. So that's kind of a good thing to kind of understand before you come to your base tan formula. There's a bit. Look, we always have all the products there, but it allows us to know. So, for example, as well, darker skin types, African skin. People say, why do I need to tan it? You hugely need to tan it because you look. Those skin types then tend to have it like in drier skin areas, shins, knees, backs of your elbows, all the areas that are drying out. Those skin types look grey, and we have to counteract that. So if you don't fill out the skin assessment, we don't know that. We actually use a clear formula for your base tan on those darker skin types, for the reason that you don't need any. We don't need to boost your pigment, but we do need to counteract the dry areas, and we need to even it out so that we can get rid of that grey look. And that obviously happens to the top coat. So once you've done that, you would come to your base tan appointment. FMG is now being streamlined at all the international and Australian shows, where we give you 2 days to tan, which I think is a really important thing. That came down to coaches' feedback. As opposed to a lot of federations that just you do 2 coats on the Friday and then you go on stage on the Saturday. By giving you the ability to come in on the Thursday, it has multiple ranges of flexibility. Firstly, it gives you the ability to use your base coat tan for a photo shoot on the Friday, which a lot of people are coming in doing that. It allows you the ability, if you're unsure of your skin type and if you needed to come back for an extra coat, which doesn't cost you anything extra, but if you did need to, it gives you the extra time. So you would choose whether you want your appointment on the Thursday or the Friday, and a lot of that time that comes down to travel agendas, if you're traveling in late. But we typically break up the time frames into Thursday from about midday till late, so that typically Thursday night I would say Thursday night is the best time to tan, in my opinion, mainly because it gives you, not because the tan looks any better, but because it gives you that buffer that if you needed to come back the next day, you don't have the anxiety of worrying about it. It gives you the flexibility to do a photo shoot on the Friday with the tan on. It means that you turn up to the registration meeting with the colour on. And look, I know that there is instances like this year at the October Pro-Am in Australia where the registration meeting is going to be on the Thursday. So, look, I can't control everything, but that's the host decision. But, it is, I think, giving that flexibility on the Thursday. So choosing your time slot being the Thursday or the Friday. On the Friday, let's say on a typical show where the Friday is registration in the afternoon, we break for registration because we want to go to the registration meeting too and see how great everyone looks. But it also just gives you the ability to get tanned in the morning so that you can still shower that tan off and go to the registration meeting. Then we go back and we tan on the Friday after registration. Namely, that's not typically a really popular time to tan because you're getting up at potentially 3, 4 in the morning to have your hair and makeup done. We don't look, I don't tend to sleep that well the night before a show anyway because I'm worried about the air conditioning and things like that. But so I'll be up. However, it gives the flexibility that people who are running late from flights, post registration, if you needed any updates, any top ups on your color. If you just wanted to come by and say, "Hey guys, am I dark enough?" If you just want to come keep me company and pack up the tanning room while we move to you can do that. But there's a reason behind everything that's there. So that's the base coat, and I kind of try and say to people, there's a lot of anxiety that goes with the base coat. But the best advice I can give you is just think back to that painting the wall. You know, it's the base coat isn't there for any other reason. It's got a purpose. Nobody sees the base coat on stage day because that's what the top coat for. The top coat is the most important thing. But if you go and just paint a wall without doing the primer, it looks like shit. You know, it looks patchy. So it's more important that even if you make a base coat appointment time at say 1 o'clock on a Thursday, if you're running late and you can't make it, just come later. You know, the idea of booking an appointment means that we don't have 100 people waiting at once. We'll always fit you in. You can come back as many times as you want. You know, we're there particular hours for a reason, so you can always come in. And you know, like I pride myself on the staff we have. That you know, we realize that we're not just there to kind of employ the best tanners. That look, the product does that, but it's about creating an environment of hospitality. Where we're there to kind of serve you and just kind of look right from the start to the end. The most stressful time for us is show morning when you're having your hair and makeup done. We've got makeup artists yelling at us about the times we're running, and that's always going to be stressful. But then right through the afternoon and through the evening, you know, we're there to kind of see how amazing everyone looks, and you know, and to be the last person you see before you go on stage. You know, straight after us, you got Dallas Olson or the photographer, you know, to see. So you know, that like if we're the last person that can give you a compliment before you go on stage, that makes us happy.
Yeah, absolutely. Just touching on the
Yeah,
base coat tan, when should competitors stop wearing things like deodorant? Like, what should you do with moisturizer in those days leading into the
yeah.
base coat?
Look, there's fundamental rules that go with it. The truth of it is that it's different on skin types. I'm not anti moisturizer. I'm anti moisturizer immediately before. I think well nourished skin. Typically though, the day before. The two things that really will screw it up for you, and they become hard for us to fix, is shaving and deodorant. So when we say deodorant, not natural deodorants, but deodorants, typically, you know, your Rexonas and your titanium-based deodorants, they will that like they have the titanium has a reaction with most of the base coats that we use, apart from the hypoallergenic ones, that will instantly hit it and it stains your skin green. Now that becomes a hard thing for us to counteract because it's typically under your arms. If you were rubbing deodorant on your leg, we can fix it. But because it's under your arms, we can't put any concealer because you're going to sweat it off under your arms, and you know that's the area. So you're going to have green underarms. So as long as you remove the deodorant before the appointment, you can put it on about 2 hours after the appointment, even before you shower it. It's about just not. It's a chemical reaction that when the tan hits the deodorant, instantly it goes green. Like you just see it, and as a tanner, you see it and you go, "Oh fuck," you know. Sorry, edit that, but you just go because you can't fix it. You can't tell someone to go shower it off. You can't do anything about it. You know, you're stuck in a situation where that competitor for the rest of the weekend, you've got to just go and conceal and touch up and conceal and touch up. So deodorant, remove, even if you remove it with a baby wipe or a wet towel. I know a lot of people are self-conscious about that, and I don't blame you because I would be too. I wouldn't turn up to a tanning appointment not having worn deodorant for 24 hours, so I don't say to do that. Just remove it before the tanning appointment, or bring some baby wipes. If you're self-conscious, bring some baby wipes to the appointment, or ask because we've always got them, and take it as long as you remove it right before. The hard part is if you're using an aerosol spray and you're spraying it and then you pull it up here and then it's all over your chest too. And then and then you've got this big green line over your chest. And I mean, that's, you know, that doesn't happen very often, but it's not ideal. Perfume, same thing. It's not common these days, but a lot of perfumes do use titanium as well, typically the cheaper ones. But there's that. Shaving as well. Look, shaving's not normally a big deal. It comes down to your skin type. So if you shave, depending on your hair length and what type of and how thick it is and how often you shave, you open up pores in that area of your skin, and it takes normally around 12 hours for them to kind of close over with a bit of extra skin or the pores to reform. What that creates is if the pores are open and you have typically a lighter or even a darker skin type, and we spray it, the pores become heavily clogged and you get dots. And obviously in shaved areas, they typically are in vulnerable areas that you don't want people staring at. So crutch lines. Just think about all the places you shave. And if you've got dark dots around those areas, that's not something that's easy for us to cover backstage. So, it becomes a thing where it's like, okay, are they going to see it? Probably not. Will you be able to zoom in and see it on photos? Probably. And it becomes, it's one of these things that it becomes in your head as a competitor. You're conscious of it. And we can't really do much to cover it, because the more color we do, because if you remember kind of what I was saying about the tan develops based on the color underneath. So if you've got clogged pores from shaving that has created a whole heap of dots, and they're dark dots because the tan's got clogged in there, then when we would put more tan over the top, it's just going to make them darker. So they're the two things. Everything else, everything else is generally fixable. Moisturizer, look, your worst case with moisturizer is you come in, say you use a really cheap moisturizer. So the ones to avoid are things like Nivea, Sorbeline creams, anything like when you read the ingredients, anything with a petroleum oil or a glucose base is you want to avoid, because they're not good for your skin for a start, but they clog your pores. And tanning as a process for the base tans means that the tan has to get in through your pores. So if you clog your pores, all that happens is the tan sits on the outside of your skin, and when you shower it off after we say 4 to 6 hours after your appointment, you can leave it on longer if you want to. All that happens is it all washes down the drain, and it was all for naught. So we've got to start again. But we start again. So it's like that's something that we can fix, because the moisturizer won't affect the top coat, because top coat body makeup, it goes over the top. So it actually just forms as a film. It affects the base coat. So if you came in on a Thursday night, you did a base coat and you had moisturizer all over your body, and it was a moisturizer that clogged your pores, you would shower it off in the morning, and then you'd be like, where's my color? Or my color looks inconsistent, only developed in some areas, not other areas. So we would then, you would come back to us and you'd be in a panic, and we'd be like, it's all good, and we'll just spray you again and it would work out. Now, on that note, hugely important thing to understand, two other factors have a play in that is stress levels and menstrual cycles. So it is hugely common for stress levels, especially at any important event, whether it's a wedding or a fitness competition, or any kind of thing that you're stressed out about. For your body, it could be the same spray tan you've used week in, week out, but when your body's heightened and you're in a high anxiety level, spray tan as a process, it's not like we're painting you a color. It goes on brown so that we can see where we're going. The actual spray tan ingredients, the ingredients that tan you are sugarcane, and it's clear. So it's made of all natural ingredients. For it to be an active process, it absorbs in through your skin's pores into your epidermis, and it has a scientific reaction in the second layer of your skin to develop a color. For that to happen, your skin has to be willing to absorb a foreign product. And when you're stressed, like anything, it's like if you typically have a fight with your partner because you're stressed and you're just not willing to hear anything, so you have an argument. Your skin's doing the same thing. So when your skin's under stress and it has to absorb the product if in that situation, it typically clogs its own pores through natural oils and rejects the product. And I would say that probably happens to 5% of competitors in lead up to the show, where the base tan doesn't develop properly and they've got to come back. So they'll come back and just say, oh, it just didn't develop at all. I don't know what's going on. That would either be two things, and they both come down to stress. It's stress levels, or even if like I know a lot of athletes, competitors can start to they miss cycles. Female competitors miss cycles as the body gets to peak. It doesn't mean that your body's not in the cycle. So at that time, your body's telling itself to protect itself against anything foreign. So spray tan is a foreign thing. If you don't get spray tan regularly, or if it's just that you're at peak stress, your body's doing its job by rejecting it. No different if you eat bad food and you throw it up from food poisoning. It's the same thing. So you don't physically see it that way, but what your body does is it creates natural oils. It goes, here's something coming into my skin's pores, which is your biggest organ on your skin. It's absorbing it in, and it goes, no, I don't know it. I set up a defense mechanism. I reject it, which means you look brown 1 minute, you shower, and then you go back same color. In that instance, 99.9% of the time, if you just come back to the tanning rooms and get resprayed, it'll work out the second time, because your body goes, oh, okay, I know that now. And it's normally, when I say it's in your cycle, it's normally only one day in your cycle, and it just, like, that's why I said with the competitors being heavily female at the moment, we notice it a lot more. But even in male competitors, it really does happen based on stress levels, dietary requirements. Your body's at that peak of its stress, so it's going to protect itself from anything foreign coming in, which it should. It means you're healthy, but it doesn't mean the tan's crap. It just means you've got to come back.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And just touching back on the moisturizer as well, I know that's something a lot of people asked about. So is there a moisturizer that you can recommend for competitors?
Look, it's not to spruik our own product, but it's kind of, you can go for so we've got this one. So Coconut Crush, but there's about 5 of them. So they're all to each one is adapt to a different skin type. That's a body butter. I still wouldn't use it right before the appointment, but I'd use it the lead up to it. It's got a little bit of DHA in it, which DHA being your tanning ingredient means it's a booster. But the main things, the ones you want to go for are, baby oil is not bad as in terms of skin condition. I wouldn't recommend baby oil as a lead up to things. But if you're somebody who baths regularly, just spraying some baby oil, like putting a bit of baby oil in your bath, gets your skin in a really soft, silky condition. It's not something you can't use it 24 hours before because it will clog your pores. It does get your skin in good condition, but typically shea butter. So that's what ours are made of. You're using shea butters, coconut oils, anything with that, that where your body's going to with that natural base that goes in there. Your glycol bases and your petroleum oils and things like that, they're designed to give your skin a really soft, silky feel. But what they're doing is they're clogging your pores and stopping your skin from breathing. So they're actually dehydrating your skin in the long run, which is typically when you start to have people, break up through your cleavage areas and things like that because the skin gets so dry and stressed through there. And you see that on stage competitors a lot. And there is things you can do to counteract that. So on that, obviously, if you've got breast implants for shows, it goes without saying that this is a fairly fundamental fact. Anyone with them would know that a spray tan, when you get it, typically doesn't go as dark there. And there's for good reason, because your pores are a lot more stretched. So there's 2 things you can do. Obviously, moisturize to get your skin's elasticity good. But more importantly than that is when you apply the product. So when you're applying, whether it's this or if you're getting the base tan builder, the FMG base tan builder, which is essentially a really hydrating product, or any of our skin conditioners, our step 1 skin conditioners, the best time to apply them is immediately after a shower, because the heat, like a hot shower, because the heat which if you're showering daily, presumably everybody does, when you get out, you pat yourself dry, your pores are a lot more open, which means you will absorb a lot more product. So your pores are about 3 to 4 times larger at that time, which means you're not having to use as much, which means you're getting more of the benefits, and your skin's going to be in better condition, especially in areas where you've got stretched pores. Because with stretched pores, even though it sounds like, they're stretched and more open, they're not. It's harder for things to absorb in. So if you're having a hot shower, then straight away putting the products there, you're going to have healthier skin there. And look, I mean, that's all something that we know. So we'll like, typically when we're tanning you, when the girls are tanning you, they'll apply more product there. But it's the same thing with especially in female competitors, is through your abdomen, and because women's abdomens have like thicker skin layers, simply because you carry babies, and that's the reproduction. But it does mean that we apply more product in that area, because it's hard. Like, anyone who has ever had a spray tan and says, yeah, I just don't go dark enough on my stomach, it's simply because the spray tanner should be applying the product to your stomach first, and then coming back doing a second coat once the product started to absorb, because you have thicker skin in that area. Guys don't have that, but women do. Right. And some women have it thicker than others, and especially women who have had babies in the previous 12 months. So because your body's still in that cycle where you've got a thicker layer there. So spray tan knowledge.
Yeah. Could you give us a step-by-step walkthrough of how to achieve the best possible tan for show, like including skin prep. This episode will probably be released around 10 weeks out from the Gold Coast show. So for anyone doing that show, what can they start doing
Yeah.
now leading up until show
So,
day?
look, base tan is key. And when I say base tan isn't about how dark you are. It's about how much melanin or how much tanning ingredient you have in your skin. So you can do it. I like to say you can do it in the natural way, or you can do it synthetic way. Now, that's not saying that using a base tan builder is synthetic, because we make it's natural. They're natural tan enhancers. However, if you're somebody who uses tanning beds, goes in the sun, that's not. I'm not recommending people either way, but having that base tan is going to mean that the tan adapts faster. So like that's so one way or the other, you want to have a good base tan. Now, that is typically for people of your skin type, my skin type. So skin type 1, skin type 2, skin type 3s. If you're you can have people with really olive skin that don't go in the sun. It doesn't mean they've got a good base tan. But then there is just people who are just naturally born with a lot of skin melanin. So Mediterranean skin types, European skin types, African skin types. They don't have to worry too much about having the base tan. What they've got to worry about is skin condition. So typically, if you're building a base tan, so using a base tan builder, using a skin conditioner, which are kind of the same thing. So when you look at the FMG products online that we have, we've got the Ultimate Base Tan Booster, which is a straight tan booster. It's designed to give you base color and give your skin all your essential 9 vitamins that it needs just to hold the tan. So it keeps your skin healthy. Then you've got the specific ones, Coffee Chic, Berry Bliss. Those are breaking it down to particular skin types if you have skin concerns. So like the Mango one, for example, if you struggle with acne, blackheads in your skin, it is a really important thing to know, because you need those areas of your skin to be clean. Like it's all good to talk about putting moisturizers and things in, but if you're clogging your pores with crap, you tend to have breakouts from the product. So, using those ones. So those are more skin. If you don't have any skin specific issues, then in that situation, you just go for the straight up base tan builder. But you can also, and look, and I don't encourage it either way, like I said, but if you're going to build your base tan through moderate UV tanning, and when I say moderate, you don't need it's not a tanning it's not a competition of trying to get darker and darker and darker. It's a situation of having the melanin in your skin good, like at a good point, because like I said, the spray tan is a scientific reaction in your skin. So you do need some kind of base tan. Somebody without any pigment, or somebody who hibernates and doesn't have any color, whether it's either synthetically created or naturally created, it's going to be harder for us to build the tan. It means you're going to have more appointments. It means you're putting more product on your skin. So that's the first thing to think about. First thing to think about is, how am I going to build my base tan? Easiest way to do it is base tan builder. You apply that once, twice a week after a shower, and you just literally put it on kind of head to toe, not your face, typically shoulders down. It doesn't matter if you miss spots. It just starts to get it in there. You'd start that about 2 to 3 weeks out from the show. Then you want to start thinking about your skin condition. Like what are my areas? So if you have implants, think about what I've said about pore stretching, where you want to start moisturizing and nourishing those areas with the right products, typically after a shower. If you're somebody who shaves your legs regularly, like on a daily basis, your skin's going to be dry. Once again, always follow up with moisturize. And like I said, you can get like those are good moisturizers, but just look for ingredients that avoid your glycols and your petroleum oils and things like that. You'll know the good oils on the back. You read the ingredients, your natural oils like your coconut oils and things, you go straight to those products. Your Neutrogenas, your Niveas, your cheap Sorbolines, you avoid that stuff, and you're pretty good. So yeah, skin condition from that point of view. Look, I want to say manage your stress levels, but that's unrealistic. So don't manage your stress levels. Leave that to us, because we're all to do with that. But plan out when you're going to shave, when you're going to wax. If you're doing if you're doing proper like hair removal things, like a lot of the hair removal creams, you kind of got to do it 2 to 3 days before, just because of how intrusive they are to your skin. And you've got to realize they quite often are taking off layers of skin, like typically dry layers. So in that situation, we always tell you to exfoliate before a tan which is just good skincare to do once a week anyway, just with a mitt. But if you're going to use hair removal creams, exfoliate before that too, so you're getting the first layer of skin off, so you're going to have a consistent finish, so it's not taking off in some areas, not others. But just plan your shaving, like just you don't want those dots. Like those dots always end up in bikini lines, under your arms, and it's extremely difficult for us to, well, even if we could cover it, like we'd be sitting there right before you go on stage, kind of, always having to, put, tanning product on your bikini line. It just doesn't look good. So that, like, those three things are the most important thing. The one thing that you can always feel comfortable doing is when the girls, you'll always get a text message from us and feel comfortable that if you have things like, if you have strong tan lines, that potentially could be visible on stage. I'm not talking about a G-string cut. I'm talking about, you wear a singlet for work, or, you've got crop top mark from when you've gone for a walk. Even if it's a week before the show, take a photo of it and send it to us, so that there is products that we don't always have at stage. If I look at it and go, okay, that's something we can fix with, we can bring that product to the show. So there is often things we can do. You don't like tanning over sunburn. And it's the same kind of thing with bruises. Like the amount of people that we see, in peak week that, you're obviously, you're dieting, your brain's not quite there, and you go to the gym and you walk into a dumbbell, or I don't know, I don't go to the gym as often as you guys do. There's something, and someone's in perfect form, and you've got this huge bruise right on your glute, and I'm like, oh gosh, and you want us to fix it. It is possible sometimes, but there's also, that's where there's a product we have, with any product that includes Kakadu plum. Kakadu plum is literally a secret weapon for extracting darkness out of your skin for tan. So we use that a lot. So we can mix that into the spray tan, and we can mix it into. So that's what I mean. Like we carry that from a manufacturing point of view. But if we look at it bruised, I'm not promising you we'll fix it completely. But we'll be realistic about it. But we can dull it down. There might be an airbrush spray we can put on it. It's going to depend on what area it is, but I get it happens more often than it doesn't happen, where 3 or 4 people are just like, yeah, I just dropped, and it's always the same. You're walking through the gym and you just walked into a piece of equipment and it's right on your ass, and it's like it's always like that. So
yeah,
they're the things. Is it use us for what you can, because they're the things we've put in place where we're reaching out to you, giving you a text message line that even if you're overseas and you're watching this podcast and you're messaging us knowing that our staff, we're based in Australia, it doesn't matter if you're messaging us at 3 a.m, the phone sits in the office, someone will come in and answer your question. And if we know that it's a particular, the other people I want to reach out to are hypoallergenic, people with skin allergies. That's not a problem at all. We just need to know. So you can't turn up to your appointment and just expect us to kind of have the like our products are all made of natural ingredients, but hypoallergenic typically has you'll typically have a high sensitivity to DHA, which is actually the tanning ingredient. So from a process point of view, what we would do is go really light on your base coat, and we go darker, because remember, the day of competition color is a body makeup, so it doesn't actually penetrate your pores much more than about 10%. So you're not going to have allergies, to it. It washes off after the show, which is highly beneficial. So we have to get that primer on you, the skin, the base coat, but we can use less of it, and we can use a clear product, which is like what we use for African skin types, where we don't need to create color. We just need to get the base in there so that the top coat will work. From a functionality point of view, those are the helpful things to think of. And if you do sweat on stage, and when I'm talking sweat, I'm talking profusely sweat. Like it typically is it's not always pigeonholed to the guys, but typically, fitness, physique, and the male models. That's something that's helpful for us to know, because it doesn't happen a lot, but in instances where it does get really wet on stage, my advice now, especially in the male competitors, we can build the same color over 2 or 3 base coat appointments and spare you the issue to have to do a top coat. Because really, for the male competitors, the judging criteria, you need to be dark enough, but you don't necessarily, you're going to get that high gloss finish just from the sweat you've got on your skin. So if we get the color right, you're going to be glossy anyway. Whereas with the female competitors, we've got to give you that high gloss airbrush finish, because you're not necessarily sweating on stage. So, like they're all like little one percenters that make a big difference for repeat competitors. Especially Jakey Hunter, when he won in Sydney this year, and he's like, I've seen him like the kind of the last 5 times he's competed, and getting his tan right has probably been the hardest thing. It's been a journey, because it's like you do it and he wants to be darker, so we build color on the day of competition. But it turned out that to get his color perfect, we did 3 base coats. Price is the same. You're not paying for per time you come in. You're paying for an overall service. Some people use more product on their skin. Some people use less. The whole idea is that the result's the same.
Yeah, epic. That's super helpful for competitors. So I think we'll jump into some listener questions. But actually, first, I have a question myself. So I'm competing in the FMG Dubai show and the FMG Gold Coast show. So they're only 6 months.
Congratulations. It's great.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
What do you recommend that I do between these back-to-back shows for my tan?
I was waiting. Yeah, I was waiting for this. So yeah, we haven't had this instance before. I've had people do it where they go and compete with another federation. They say to me, I'm competing with another federation next weekend. And to be honest, I'm like, oh, I don't care. No, I'm not. But, what do we do about the tan? Typically, the other federations will just paint their color over the top. So what we have to do is manage your color. So the key, it's not about the top coat will come off. So in that instance, we would need to know. Like prior to your, and I'm going to I'll put that in the questions for the October Pro-Am actually in Australia, because I presume there's going to be a lot of people backing up to do Dubai, which I think is a great idea, being so close afterwards. There's 2 things I would instantly call out. Firstly, we would go lighter on your base coat, just because we can build it in your top coat on the Sunday for the Pro-Am. Then you wash it off, you start with the base. The other thing to kind of factor in, and I know this from doing the travel a lot, is when you get in an airplane and you do 15, 20 hours in transit, your skin's going to get so dried out and so screwed up anyway, that even if you found that in the past our tan would last 2 weeks on your skin, it won't for the Dubai show, because I do it like 15 hours in transit, it dries your skin out and your skin's going to be in horrible condition when you get to Dubai. So, I would probably say to embrace that. Try and get into Dubai a day or 2 early, and then then get into a bath, baby oil, shea butters, and probably bath your skin more than shower, because when you shower, you strip your skin of its oils. When you bath, you can really put in some good ingredients. So taking just a little, the Johnson & Johnson baby oil is fine, but just putting a little bit of that in with it, like a shea butter based product, and by putting that in the bath, it's going to replenish your skin's nutrients pretty quick. So you probably find that the plane travel is going to do you favors by drying your skin out fairly well, and it makes it easier. And just take a scrubbing mitt. I'm not saying you will need to scrub it off, because look, when you get on stage for Dubai anyway, the top coat's going to cover it. The key thing is not having your skin so base coated up that we can't do anything on the Sunday to build more color. So if we're going into the Pro-Am with a slightly lighter base coat, which you can't, myself or Carla or Shah, we're all by saying that we go in with lighter, we go heavier on stage day for the October Pro-Am. Then I would say embrace the elements on the plane. Let your skin dry out, because the 20 hours in transit will kick your butt. It's just all that recycled air, and what the planes do to your skin, it's terrible. It's like your tan will be flaking off by the time you get off the plane, and then replenish it with a bathtub or something like that. If you haven't got a bathtub in your room, I don't know, go to the hotel pool. That's not great either. That's
cool. Baby oil.
go to the spa. But you can do it in the shower. But a steaming shower is good too. I think people underestimate how much good the steam is for their skin. Just even if you're not standing directly under the hot water, I tend to say just for your skin's ability to rebound from airline travel, air conditioning. Steam's great. So finding a sauna, sauna's good. It does, because your skin it gets all the crap out of your pores, but it really does just and look, if you turn up to your base coat for Dubai and you've got patchy skin, it doesn't matter. That's the least of my problems, because we always travel with, like, and it's included in your service anyway, but skin primer. So skin primer, so we talked about base coat and top coat. Skin primer is a product that we would use typically it is exactly what it says it does. It forms a layer between your skin and the tan. So when you've already got a tan underneath, by putting a primer on, we'd only put it in certain areas. So any areas where you patch up, so you'll probably find through your chest, all the areas where everyone's going to see will patch up, so that it's a terrible feeling, but through your chest, your stomach, backs of your legs, backs of your knees, all those areas patch up and look dry and scaly. So by putting the primer on those areas, tanning over the top, we form a layer. It's not the healthiest thing in the long run, but it'll get you through the show. It just means your scaly, getting rid of tan process after the show will go for twice as long. But your tan will look perfect for Dubai. So that's yeah. I was waiting for somebody to ask me that, actually, because I think there must be about 80 or 90 people already booked for the Pro-Am is going to be big on the Gold Coast one, and Dubai is about to launch. So I'm like, I've been kind of waiting for those questions. So there you go.
Yeah, epic. No, that's really helpful.
Good.
So you don't recommend trying to scrub the tan
No.
off necessarily?
You won't be able to. No, you won't be able to scrub it off either. And that's the other thing. Tanner razors. We've got a good tanner razor on our website, but tanner razors aren't tanner. They don't erase a tan. They're skin cleansers. And going back to the process, the tan, it forms in the second layer of your skin. So short of stripping 2 layers of skin, you can't get rid of the tan. Not in 2 days. You need at least 7. And 7 days you're going to be getting resprayed. So what you've got to do is manage it. And by managing it, get it, the elements will get the tan off, like by drying your skin out. But all that you're going to end up with patchy areas. But if you like, say it's patching up through your chest, if you wipe your chest and you can see it starting to come off, then go for scrub it off. But all you're going to do is sit in the shower and you'll be scrubbing, and your skin will be going red raw, and all you're doing is creating skin irritations and making yourself really uncomfortable, because the tan's actually down the second layer. You're not going to get it out.
Yeah.
That's one thing doesn't matter how often you tell people, and you've probably heard it now. I'd say anyone who's tan's probably heard it a million times, but we're not painting you. It's in the second layer. And that's why tans can last, on healthy skin, tan can last 21 days, because the skin's exfoliation cycle is 21 days. But a tan in itself in nature is full of alcohol, bronzer, and it's dehydrating your skin, which is why typically you get 7 to 10 days, because you're shortening the skin's exfoliation cycle. So, that's what I mean by just allowing your skin to go through the elements. You'll probably find you might only get 5 days out of the tan. By being on the plane, don't do anything, don't moisturize, don't do anything. Wait till you get to Dubai and then look after your skin.
Yeah, no, that's super helpful. So we'll jump into some of the listener questions. I think we've already covered a lot of it. What are the best skin prep tips to get a nice looking tan? Is there anything you want to add to everything you've already said, or you think you've covered it?
It depends on your idea of a nicer tan. There's hacks you can do, like if you kind of get into that, you can eat carrots. So carrots, and it sounds crazy, but that's actually a proven thing. If you eat too many carrots, you get orange. But you eat this kind of gets a little bit, it's not I wouldn't call it a conspiracy theory. People go, oh yeah, right, but it's like anything. Carrots are a superfood for tanning. But the best thing is sunshine, and like I'm a huge advocate of 15 minutes. Get you 15 minutes of vitamin D a day. And if you're fortunate enough to be on the Gold Coast. At the moment, the weather's great. Down in Sydney, it's not too bad. But as you're kind of coming into the October show, just going for a walk in your workout gear, crop top, shorts, guys, get your guns out and just go for a walk on the beach. 10, 15 minutes. That's going to make a huge difference to your skin's condition for the tan. It might, if you're still paranoid about your color, the base tan build is good. But look, carrots, is a superfood. But I don't like to push it too much, because the one thing I'm a hater of, and it's not healthy for you either, is like like your melanin boosters and things like that. When people who are taking like the artificial ones, which are basically pumping your skin, like everyone knows that they're all over Instagram and things like that at the moment. It's not helpful to us because you might be thinking, okay, I need to get darker. You don't need to get darker. you need to build melanin. Melanin isn't something that you need to look brown for. You need to have like glow. So getting that 15 minutes of sun, 10, 15 minutes of sunlight a day is healthy. The color that we've got, so when we work with FMG to create the color, that it's on brand, and when you have somebody who goes and takes basically stimulants for like by having melanin injections and things like that, it makes our life really hard because look, firstly, they're not healthy. But second, and regardless of that, I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on the internet, so I'm not worried about it telling you what to do. But it's that you turn up with one look on your color, but because you've boosted your melanin so intensely, and we go and put the tan on you, then on stage you look so dark that it's not on brand. And all that's going to happen in the judging is you're going to get moved to the end of the aisle so that you're not on photo, because your color's not on brand from a point of view of, even if you might win the category, you've got to think, if you're in a category with 10 people and those photos are being streamed and FMG have a brand to worry about, you've got to look like everyone. So you've gone and tried to cheat the tanning process by making yourself extra dark. You're better off coming up to me and saying, hey, Sam, I really, really want to be dark. Can you make me as dark as you can? And we'll do that within as much as it's not going to affect your judging criteria. But, these melanin boosters and things, they're all the nasal ones. They used to be, back in the day, people used to take injections. Now you take the nasal space. What they're doing, like it's boosting your melanin in an artificial way. That when we put the tan on you, we look at you and go, okay, you've got a good tan, so we put tan on you, and then all of a sudden you come back the next day, and I'm like, whoa, like what happened? That's the process. So it becomes a situation. Then we can't put the top coat on you, which means you don't look airbrushed, which means you don't have the finishing spray, which means you don't have the color they want for stage. So that would be the one thing I'd encourage people not to do. When I say carrots, I mean, it sounds a bit gimmicky, but it does work, but I mean, I don't want people then sitting there eating a bag of carrots a day, because then it can have the opposite effect, where carrots do actually, because they make your skin a little bit orangish, but it does give that boost in color. So, it's a bit of a hack, but don't go too nuts. 2 or 3 a day is fine. Yeah, but
no, that's good to know.
Yeah.
And what should competitors consider for tanning on media night if this is before their base coat tan is applied?
Yeah, look, I don't like anyone turning up with base coat on, just because it's like, first of all, for you, it's uncomfortable. Then you get the transfer to you. You're better off thinking, that's why we offer after media night. However, if you want the tan for media, you just want it. That's why we typically stop on the Friday on a typical show when media days and afternoon, like say it starts at 5 o'clock. We would stop at 1 or 2. That's because we believe that you need minimum 4 hours for the tan, 3 to 4 hours for the tan to be on your skin. I think you should shower it off and then go to media. Simply because two factors, it obviously, like, the base coat can look a little bit patchy and muddy, but also base coat, when you wear base coat, it's like leaving a spray tan appointment and going shopping. Everyone can tell, and in photos it looks even worse. And then with the way that we've done the base coats now, it is normal for you to leave a base coat appointment with a color undertone, because the stage lighting for FMG, we have the prominent pinks, and the stage lighting is just as much part of the branding, and the tanning is designed to build around that. We're setting your base coat up based on your color tone, on your skin's color tone. So you're going to have, when you take a photo with just a base coat on, you might have like a pinky look or a reddy look or a green look. That's because the color tone's still in there until you've showered it off. So I really think you want to shower it off. If you're struggling with time, just don't be afraid to shower earlier. The tan will keep developing, but for peace of mind, you can always come back for after registration for an extra spray. Like we can put another, and even if you had it at 9 o'clock at night, you go home, you get some sleep, you're getting up at 3 in the morning for your makeup, you still want it, and you shower it before. Always, always, always make sure you shower your base coat before you come for a top coat, because as much as the base coat is there to help the top coat, if you haven't showered the excess bronzer and the excess, all that color guide off, then it looks terrible on stage. And and it's not something that we automatically see, but it's something the judges will see for sure. And it's something, when I see the photos, when Pauline says, Sam, what went wrong here? She didn't shower off a base coat. So, and in the I'd love to say we say to everyone on show day morning, have you showered before you came here? When you've got 100 people turning up to spray tans over the course of a couple of hours, it's shotgun. So we should be asking you, but then sometimes if you're one of the people that don't get asked, or you didn't hear it properly, or you got rushed through because we were the hair and makeup was running behind, or we were running behind, or anything was going on, or you were running late from your hair and makeup appointment in the city, that's not a nice thing, because then you've basically you paid for all these stage photos, and you can see that your tan's not perfect.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And if someone is
Yeah.
getting their base coat tan after media night, or they've got a photo shoot or something that they want a bit of color for, can they use the base builder tan, or what do you recommend in that situation?
Well, look, the base builder is a clear product in itself, so you can use it, but you want to probably apply it the day before. It will give you. It's a color booster, and it's typically designed for areas with low pigment. So like your legs, like I said, if you're shaving your legs regularly, so areas that struggle to tan, areas of your body that don't see a lot of sunlight, they're great. It's great for. Still great for the other areas, but it's not a strong tan in itself. So you've got, I mean, these are kind of your two kind of go-tos. Is Ultimate Boost, that's your base tan builder, which that's for lighter skin types. And then I would probably be going for more your Maximum Dark for that. And but you can put that on the morning of registration or a photo shoot. And obviously, that's probably something we haven't covered, which is only kind of new this year, is your glitz and your shimmer finishes. It's kind of really important to know that these are one of the wet products that I was kind of talking about at the start, that they actually suck the moisture out of your skin and dehydrate your skin. So really good thing. It's like having a shot of vodka, which will just dehydrate you. So they do, if you're holding excess moisture, they're great for that. But having the shimmer finish, it isn't part of the judging criteria. It definitely won't win you points with the judges. That's not about that. It's a cosmetic thing, that it's like adding eyelashes to your makeup. Do you want them? Do you not? If you've got a really shimmery bikini and you want that shimmery look, the more you apply, the shimmerier you get. The less you apply. We don't expect you to do it. If you have it in your kit. Like that would probably last you 20 shows anyway. But you just have it in your kit and you go, yeah, I want it. Or what do you think? Just ask. But it does definitely dry your skin out. So you can use that. That's a good thing to use for media day too, over the top of, that would the maximum color, because the maximum color, it has a little bit of color guide in it, which is the same as the show day color. It's not as intense, but you put it on and it dries it almost instantly. And it's got a bit of that body makeup, so you can just apply it, wear it, and you don't have to shower it off. So you can use it for photo shoots. You can use it for media day, registration. You can literally just put it on your legs before you go out for dinner. The only thing that will happen is if it starts pelting down rain, then it's going to come off. But, apart from that, it's a body makeup. So, yeah, it looks great.
Yeah, amazing. And how do you keep your tan looking fresh if you've got a photo shoot a few days later?
All right. So, yeah, you can look that, putting a little bit of that on will beef it up if you want more color. I'd be more inclined to go for your shimmer sprays. And it depends what kind of finish you want in your photo shoot. So topping up your color, making it look fresh, you probably want to add that, because that's the closest thing we sell that looks like the stage color. So considering you've got a bit on there, so you're boosting it with that. There's another product we sell on the website called Double Wear, and it's a very similar mix. I kind of say that I would they're almost identical, but the reason we call it Double Wear is because you apply it and it just it's designed for photo shoots, so you instantly wear it for the shoot. Then after you shower it, you still got your normal tan underneath that lasts a week. So you're getting kind of a two. So it's got this airbrush finish. So you would apply it, go get your makeup done, do a photo shoot. That would be the best way to do it. But if you're wanting that high gloss finish, then using your we've got the gold one, the silver one, but probably the more appropriate one for photo shoots is Airbrush Aura. It's an airbrush spray-on finish. They're not hard to use. They're not hard to apply yourself, but I typically advise people to have somebody else spritz it on them, because if you go too close to the skin, say you want to be spraying, it does say it on the back of the bottle, but it's about 15 centimeters away, 15 to 20. If you go too close, it's too wet, and if you've got that body makeup, that tan underneath, it's going to drip it. that's not a big problem. That's something where you grab a bronzing brush, and which is actually a really good tip for backstage. And look, we're backstage to look after everyone, but even at photo shoots, when you're using like a product like this, or you're using our stage color, is just think that it's body makeup. So a bronzing brush is the perfect thing to have in your kit, because if you need to, say you've done a costume change and you've got a mark on your arm and you're worried about it and you can't find a tanner to help you out, that mark, the product hasn't left your body, it's just moved. So by grabbing a bronzing brush and just blending it, you're moving it back into place. So it's a really easy thing to be able to fix up. And by doing that, you're not ruining the tan. A lot of people will be like, hey, I need to add some more tan. So quickly, I'll just add some more color to my tan. Yeah. Like that's the worst thing you can do, because you're actually adding color, which means you're changing the color. Whereas if you just grab a bronzing brush and move it around, you're actually just putting the tan back into place, because it's separated. So when you would change it, I mean, look, theoretically, it can come off on your costume and change, but by moving it around, it's no different to going to powder your nose you're not always having to add more product, you're just taking the shine off, or, like if you've got an oily T-zone, it separates, so you just move it back into place. It's the same kind of thing.
Yeah, cool. No, that definitely makes sense. And any tips for waxing or shaving before getting a tan? Which one is better? And in the ideal situation, what would you recommend?
Look, I tend to think waxing is probably better, just because like I don't trust most of the shavers on the market. they tend to give inconsistencies. You get waxing, you get the same. So as a spray tanner, when we're spraying you, like we might notice dotting in one area but not on the other area. So legs are a perfect example. So you nail the back of your legs, because that shaver was perfect for that. And then on the front of your legs, you get dotty spot. Whereas if you go and get it waxed, same result everywhere. So that would be, waxing's my preference, but the main thing you can do is allow that 24 hours, because then your pores have closed back up. It happens so often where people are like, oh crap, I haven't waxed. All right. So you go and wax right before your tanning appointment. You would have been better off coming for your tan, going to get waxed, seeing what tan got removed and having us touch it up afterwards, if that makes sense. Not straight afterwards. We'd wait till the next day, because it does happen a lot where people just kind of, they go, oh, I just got waxed. I'm like, oh, thanks for telling me. Now your pores are clogged with tan, and you've got all those dots. So waxing's my preference.
Yeah, ideally,
but,
what day would you get the waxing done before the show?
Oh, look, 2 days before is best. And unless I don't know anyone who gets waxed that's not going to, we're not like, we haven't got Wolverines out there growing the hair through that quick. So I think 2 days buffer zone's good. But I understand people's travel logistics that's sometimes hard. So look, 24 hours at a minimum, but 48 hours is best, because you're still going to have that really nice smooth surface. You're not going to have any regrowth through. You can put a coat of moisturizer on 24 hours after, keep your skin in good condition. The other thing about it is skin reactions to wax. If you don't wax very often, like by giving it 48 hours, typically if you have a reaction to a waxing agent, or just the redness only normally lasts about a day. So that's why I would say, 48 hours is a good amount of time. Even 3 days before is still going to be fine, but everyone's skin's different, like it just kind of depends on how fast you grow back and whether you do that. If it's your first time waxing, it happens a lot with the guys, but don't do it immediately before the show. Like, go and have a trial run to make sure your skin doesn't have a freak out reaction. Because it's more common than you think, people having reactions to certain types of wax, or just to the wax in general, because their skin's not used to it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's super helpful. And for anyone with stretch marks, is there anything that you can do before the base coat tan to stop it settling in the scars and making them more obvious?
Yeah. So look, there is like we caffeine in those areas, and topically created. So from the outside, you can get caffeine drops, and guarana drops are good. We've got a product called Coffee Chic, which is part of the FMG range, which is typically, so, most of those areas are, going to be around, glutes, through like growth areas. So whether it's through, it's not always in the typical areas, but even stretch areas where your skin's, had a lot of growth really fast. Once those stretch marks start to get to a point where they get they're like a really severe stretch mark where it's got a redness through it. Not much you can do in terms of covering the color yourself, but we can cover that. But the actual stretch marks, you just want to firm it up. So it's literally like that. We've got, that product we call Coffee Sheet comes out of a pump. I haven't got one here to show you, but it comes out of there, and you just apply it. It comes out, and it's packed with caffeine and guarana. So what it's doing is you want to start using it about 14 days out every second day. But what it's doing is it's just stretching your skin out in those areas. It's not a permanent fix, but for lead up to stage, it definitely helps. It's like anything; it depends on the size, the severity. I would probably encourage most people to kind of err on the side of if they're faint. That's what the airbrush finish is for. You know, the bit of gleamer that's in the top coat and the stage lighting, you're probably not going to see it anyway. But for peace of mind, that Coffee Sheet product's probably all you're going to need. If they're really severe, we tend to counteract that. Most severe ones they're more prominent not because of their stretch marks. They're more prominent because of color differences, because it's come about through childbirth or growth periods or stretching in your skin or sudden weight loss or sudden weight gain. So those things that tends to happen where you've got a lighter form of your skin. So that can be counteracted with the top coat and just by touching it up. Like that's what the touch ups will be backstage, by us putting a little bit more color when we're like, you always see us on our knees in the lineup with the bikini models, and you're patting everyone's butt, legs. That's predominantly what it is. It's those things. So the small lines under your tush, that happens to everyone as soon as they sit down. So which is why we're always checking everyone. But small stretch marks in those areas tend to be color variations, which we can fix. And you probably don't need to do anything. But for peace of mind, the Coffee Sheet product's good.
All right, epic. And do
Yeah.
competitors need to worry about sitting on the toilet on show day? Is that going to impact their tan?
Well, no, it impacts our cleanup because we've got to clean the toilet seats afterwards. But no, yeah, look, the colour definitely comes off the back of your legs and underneath. And look, accidents happen in that situation. I know people have those, the wee cups and things like that. I don't tend to think it's a problem because it's like, we're there to touch it up for you anyway, so I wouldn't worry too much. You've got a lot of all the staff have seen, especially our female staff, have seen and heard everything before, and they're there to make sure your bikini's taped in the right area and not riding up your butt too much. So they're going to be able to help you like fix any of that. But when you sit down on the toilet seat, your tan will transfer to the toilet seat. We know that because we clean the toilet seats afterwards to get the tan off. But that's why we're in the lineup to touch it up. It's one of those things where because it's a body makeup, it's going to transfer. It doesn't typically transfer to material. It typically transfers to toilet seats. If we could have velvet toilet seats, which I might run this by Ari, but velvet carpet toilet seats, we wouldn't have this problem. But it's the moist environment where you're sitting on that type of material and your skin sweats. But like the best thing for us is for you to do what you would normally do. Like be conscious of your tan, but like all these things that everyone's got to go to the toilet, everyone's got to get changed. Everyone has to have their makeup done. Everyone has to pump up before the show. So we adapt to that, and we'll see it. But you'll probably find that the colour won't change anyway. The transfer is normally a little bit of the excess bronzer for the first few times, and if it starts to get a bit light, then we fix it up before you go on. So the worst thing you can do is try and fix it yourself. You just kind of find one of us to do that. But yeah, if you get off the toilet seat and you can see that there's colour there and it wasn't there before you got on, then yeah, it's transferred, but it's fairly minimal. It looks worse because it's a white seat, but yeah.
Yeah, no, cool. Yeah. And speaking of like transfer and things, how do you manage the tan with a white bikini or gown? Do you have to worry about that?
So it will look. You don't have to worry from a point of view of stage. There will be a little bit of the transfer, but just based on the fact that I'm presuming it's fitted. The same that happens with brides and things like that. It's fairly minimal. It's going to depend on how much you sweat around that area. So where the cut is. So if it's cut right under your armpit and you sweat under your armpit, you're going to get more transfer. If you tend to sweat a lot more in your chest, you're going to get it. So it's going to depend predominantly on the cut. It's worth knowing that all our products are water soluble. So it's something that you want to sell afterwards, you've got to return afterwards, or you just want for a keepsake. Just sponging it with water will take it, but it's only going to be on the inside. From a show day perspective, it won't matter. I would just probably encourage you to kind of, if it is really tightly fitted, have a girlfriend backstage, a coach, or even one of the tanners, one of the girls, to help you fit it, especially if it's halter neck or something, so that you're not scratching it before. So that there's mainly so that it's only the only transfer is going to be on the inside, so that there's no transfer on the outside. That's it's a concern, but look, I mean, you see how many people have had white dresses, white bikinis in the past, and yeah, I can't remember an instance that hasn't been on the inside. But the other part is just also it takes around about 10 minutes for the tan, the show day tan, to be completely dry. It can be touch dry within about 90 seconds, but can be completely dry. It's about 10 minutes. So most women anyway will get their top coat done and then their hair and makeup. But if you are somebody who's having it done and then you have to get dressed straight afterwards, definitely make sure you have help putting your dress or your bikini on, so that we can make sure we avoid the contact with that the part of the bikini or the dress that can be seen, with with that. And look, you're going to be flustered backstage if you're that pressed for time. You're going to be that flustered that you're going to want some help anyway. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
Well, thank you
yeah,
so much for all of these answers. I think that
no
definitely
worries.
clears up a lot of concerns and questions that
Yeah,
people have about the tanning process.
yeah. And feel free to inbox me if you've got any others, if there's anything we've missed. So
Yeah,
yeah,
amazing. I will link your details down below as well, and Fusion
perfect,
Tan, so people can reach out with any questions. And yeah, thanks
great.
again for coming on. I'm looking forward to seeing you and the team on Gold Coast.
Yeah, always a pleasure, Sarah. Thank you. We'll talk to you soon.
So much.
Cheers. All right, see you, bye.